Hello and welcome to Church at Home with Rachael for Tuesday, the 7th of June. I hope you're having a great day. In my move, I've come across a couple of things that I thought I'd lost indefinitely. And what they are is a couple of things that I use for my devotionals. And every once in a while I flag them because I think they're interesting. I'd like to chat with you a little bit about them. And this one is taken from Friday, April 1st devotion from a little booklet. I can open it up and get the front cover here for you. From a little booklet called Our Daily Bread. It's a really good resource that's put out, and it has a little scripture for the day and some little reflections. So I'd like to read this one to you. See that? The clock repairman pointed his flashlight beam on a small, fine mark roughly engraved inside the old grandfather clock he was working on in our home. Another repairman could have put that there almost a century ago, he said. It's called a witness mark, and it helps to know how to set the mechanism. Before the age of technical bulletins and repair manuals, witness marks were used to help the person making a future repair align moving parts with precision. They were more than just time-saving reminders. They were often left as simple kindness to the next person doing the work. The Bible encourages us to leave our own witness marks we work for God by serving others in our broken world. The Apostle Paul wrote to the church in Rome, each of us should please our neighbors for their good, to build them up. This is the example of our God who gives endurance and encouragement. It's about being a good citizen of both earth and heaven. Our witness marks may seem like small things, but they can make a vital difference in someone's life. An uplifting word, a financial gift to someone in need, and a listening ear, all are kindnesses that can have a lasting impact. May God help you make a mark for him in someone's life today. And this reflection was written by James Banks. That idea of a witness mark really struck me when I read that 2 months ago. I think back on my life and where I am now as a priest at 50 years old, a female priest in a church that has been ordaining women for a long time, for most of my life. I think I was 5 or 6 years old in my diocese, and we weren't the first to ordain women. So it's really never been a part of my life that women couldn't be ordained. But at the same time, like anything like that, there are those growing pains, those things that make it, those first people, the pioneers who were the first ones to go before me, who had to do the work that they did to enable me to be able to do mine, and the witness marks that they left. I remember when I was a student, there was an elderly woman. Her name was, she'd shoot me if she heard me call her that, but she's gone now. Her name was Elaine Lucas. And Elaine was in her 80s when I knew her back 25 years ago. And Elaine served as an associate priest in Bishop Cronin Memorial Church in London, Ontario. And she knew she had been called to serve God in some way, shape, or form in the church since she was a young girl. And considering she was in her 80s when I was going through for ordination in the late 1990s. So really, she was in her 60s when women could be ordained in our diocese. And yet she felt called at a young age that she was called by God to serve. And she was called, and she was chosen to work as a deaconess. She was chosen to go into the Canadian church, and she did the work, except for being able to consecrate the elements, the bread and the wine, and to absolve sin. She did pretty much everything that a traditional priest would do. She worked, I believe, in the north of Canada, where she taught children, and she led worship, and she preached, and she prayed over people, and she sat by people's bedsides, and I believe she even baptized babies. She had an incredibly strong ministry in an era when it was frowned upon for women to be doing any kind of ministry in the church. But at the same time, recognition that often women would go where men would not go. And so these deaconesses were chosen by the church and sent out to do this strong and powerful and so important ministry. And through her years, Elaine gently went about her work. I can't remember what she did later on in life for money, like for her career. But I do know that when I met her, She was a bit of a famous person around the church and around the area where the church was located. We were not in the nicest part of town. There was a methadone clinic around the corner from us. Lots of homeless folks would come into the church and ask for help, get a cup of coffee or a cup of soup, things like that. But Elaine just quietly went about helping people and doing work when people didn't realize that she was even doing it. And I remember one day she asked me, I had my mom's car. I was borrowing the car, didn't own my own yet. I was still living at home, going through seminary. And I had my mom's car, and Elaine asked me if it would be okay if I dropped her off someplace. She had an appointment. She needed to speak to somebody. And I dropped her off a couple of blocks away from the church. It was in the winter, so we drove there. And when I dropped her off, I realized that the name on the building was Elaine Lucas House. And this was a building that had many residents living in it, people who had been hard up, people who had been addicted to drugs, people who were living on the streets and who were seeking a better life. And the people who worked with them worked out of this building and helped them there. And Elaine very quietly did her work, and it was so important. They actually named the house after her. And I had no idea. But Elaine left her witness mark on me. She taught me the importance of recognizing that it's not about us. It certainly isn't about having my name on a marquee sign or underneath the name of a church on a billboard that says the Reverend Rachael Parker, Rector. It doesn't really matter. Who I am, my name, is not the point. What matters is that the name that is there points people toward Christ. That whoever's name might be highlighted on a building or on a sign or even simply on an office door it's a signpost. It's something that indicates to another person, this is someone you can speak to who can help you find out more about your faith, who will pray for you, who will help you when you are in difficult times, who will reach out to you when no one else will, who will stand by you when you can't stand for yourself. Elaine's witness mark was a powerful, powerful part of my life, and I didn't even realize it at the time. It has only been in the years past when something comes up that I realize how important her mark was on my life, and it helps me, like that watch mechanism, the witness mark. It helps me to realign myself with who I'm called to be as a priest, but not just as a priest, but as a baptized Christian. Because really, when it comes down to it, it's not about being the priest. It's about being a faithful person who follows Christ to the best of my ability. So real quick stories about Elaine. She had an incredible sense of humor. And one day she took me with her to go to Veterans Memorial Hospital in London. We were going to visit, and I was a student, so I was going with her. We were going to visit some people. And we got out of the car, and this was back before you had automated locks and things like that. She locked the doors, and we went into the hospital, and we got on the elevator, and she paused. And she smiled and shook her head. And I asked her what was up. She said, "Oh, nothing. Don't worry about it." So we went and we visited the gentleman we were going to see, the veteran. And when we came out, she said, "I need you to call Peter, the rector of the parish." I said, "Okay." And she said, "Can you just run back in and call Peter? I seem to have locked my keys in the car." Not only had Elaine walked away with the keys still in the car, she'd left them in the ignition. The car was running this whole time, and her keys were locked in. So Peter came and picked us up, and we drove to her apartment, and her superintendent let us in the building. She went in, got her keys, came back, and we went back to the hospital, and she got her spare key and got back in the car. The other one was on Feast of Pentecost, which we just celebrated 2 days ago. Peter had this unique way of celebrating Pentecost. We had balloons, the birthday of the church. So we had balloons, red and orange and yellow balloons everywhere, and special things. So instead of having the bread, the traditional bread and the wine, we had a loaf of angel food cake, and we had, instead of the bread, and we had champagne instead of wine. And when Peter went to pop the champagne bottle, the cork, so that we could pour it for consecration purposes, when he popped it, the cork went straight up and came down and bopped Elaine right in the forehead. And all she did was stand there and smile. The whole congregation saw it. We all laughed. There were tons of clergy and servers up front. And she just stood there smiling and started to giggle. And she just realized just her humility and her gentle sense of humor were part of who she was and really did teach me a great deal. So I thank the Reverend Elaine Lucas, and I thank her for the witness mark that she made long before women could be Anglican priests in the Anglican Church of Canada, in the mark that she made on the children and the wives and the husbands she served in the North, and for all those people whose lives were changed for the better because she introduced them to the hands and feet of Christ. May you know someone who is a witness mark in your life, and may you be blessed to be a witness mark in someone else's. Have a great day, and God bless you.